Well, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor. And I am here, crouched down on the ground, uh, because we are doing the grand finale of my bookshelf tour, which is the bottom bookshelf, which is the bookshelf, which is the shelf where all the mess is, basically. It's where, obviously, I stuff all the books I mean to get to for one reason or another, and then forget about. It's also, it has been pointed out to me how disorganized my bookshelf is. It is. And this is the most disorganized shelf on the bookshelf. So on to the conclusion of the tour. Okay, first I'm going to move Nona up. I'll move you over here, Nona. You stay over there, okay? And I'm going to move the cello bow because we're not going to play cello right now. And I don't know what this thing is, but I'm going to move that. Okay, now let's get on to the books. All right, let's get some of these books off the top here. This is actually a pretty cool collection. This is Masterpieces of Terror and the Supernatural, selected by Marvin Kaye. And Marvin Kaye did quite a few really kind of fun anthologies of horror and ghost and that kind of stuff. Yeah, and this is a pretty fun horror anthology. I'll set that down here. Then we got a bunch of other books that are just hanging out up here. We've got Hemingway's In Our Time, which is just sitting there for no good reason at all. Sorry, Hemingway. Then we got one that I actually want to read sometime in the near future, which is A Lush and Seething Hell by John Horner Jacobs. John Horner Jacobs. Have not read anything from this gentleman yet, but this looks like an awful good book. It's 2 novellas. Look forward to reading that. This one's pretty cool. This is The Shadow Out of Time. When S.T. Joshi was editing this Arkham House set, remember how I said he had to go over the text and correct them? He wasn't able to correct The Shadow Out of Time because nobody had the script, the typescript, or the manuscript for it. And so he wasn't able to do much with it. But it showed up. It appeared. And so he was able to finally do it. So he had to do it in this separate book. And he has a whole story of the missing manuscript in here. And the extra cool thing about this is that S.T. Joshi signed it. So that's kind of cool. More Lovecraft. Now let's move this stuff over. This is left over from my Robert E. Howard video. Robert E. Howard, Heroes in the Wind. It's awaiting its Sunday Penguin appearance, which it'll make one of these days. Bird Box by Josh Mallerman. Really good book. Not so good Netflix movie. I'll move that aside. I mean, I guess it wasn't that bad, but, you know, it sure wasn't as good as a book, I'll tell you that. Savage Season by Joe R. Lansdale. Fantastic. Fantastic book. The first Hap and Leonard novel. Hap and Leonard are great. I love Hap and Leonard. So, you know, thumbs up there. The Catcher in the Rye. J.D. Salinger. Everybody's read this. Everybody has this. I have this too. So, yeah. I might talk about that someday. I probably have to reread it. Okay, let's start back over here. Okay, I'm going to take this out because we have to talk about this big guy. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. One of the best books I've ever read. It's up there. It's probably in the top 3 or 4. I'm going to do my top, what I think are the top best novels, not just my favorites, but the best novels, the top 20. And this guy is going to be making an appearance in that. It's magnificent. War and Peace. I've read it twice now, and it's due for a 3rd reading. And then we have, this is fantastic. This is the Modern Library, Great Tales of Terror and the Supernatural. And it's the old-timey edition from back in the day. Look at that great cover. It's really, really old. When was this printed? Great Tales. I don't know if it even says, but I'm going to take a look. Anyway, just so many great horror stories. This was a really influential anthology. Yeah, 1944. Fantastic. Okay, so let's put you guys back up on the shelf. Here you go. Great Tales of Terror and the Supernatural. This is selected works by Joseph Conrad, just a cheapo hardcover that I picked up somewhere. I never have been able to find a fancy leather-bound edition of all these books in one volume. I'm sure it exists, I just don't have it. Heart of Darkness, Lord Jim, The Secret Agent, and Under Western Eyes. This guy is a really, really good writer, Joseph Conrad. He will be making an appearance in the Sunday Penguin sometime soon. Put that back up there. Then we got The Omnibus of Adventure. And this is edited by John Grove. This is a great old-timey anthology with a bunch of really great authors in there. I don't know when this must have been, what, 40s or 50s as well? Well, older than that, 1930. Yeah, Omnibus Adventure. Just great old stories in this book. It is fantastic. I love it. I've read it a few times. All right, then I've got just a random Alexandre Dumas, which is this one. The Last Cavalier, which is one of the very few Alexandre Dumas novels I have not read. I don't know what I'm saving it for, but it's, look at that. It's fantastic. And I really want to read it because I don't have enough to read. Okay, and this is another great one that I got when I was a little kid. This is 5 adventure novels of H. Rider Haggard. I talked about H. Rider Haggard when I made my video on She, a fantastic novel. And of course, that is in this book. I got this when I was a little kid. Actually, I wasn't that little when I got this. I must have been a teenager. I was about 17, 18 years old when I got this. This feels like I was a little kid. It was that long ago. Yeah. I crossed out the previous owner's name and put my name in there and put 1989. So I was a senior in high school. But yeah, this was a good one. What 5 adventure novels are in here? We've got She, King Solomon's Mines, Alan Quatermain, Alan's Wife, and Mayawa's Revenge. Great set of books. This is my introduction to H. Rider Haggard, who is a fantastic writer. Great adventure writer from the olden days. Yeah, I'll be talking more about him in the future. And of course, we've got To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Fantastic book. Everybody knows how fantastic this book is. And so, yeah, have to have that. You have to have a copy of this. And I sure am glad to have it. And then I just have a random cheapo Barnes & Noble copy of Robert Louis Stevenson's novels. Great cover there. I believe that's N.C. Wyeth. I'm not exactly sure. I think so, though. Did the cover. Anyway, bunch of great Robert Louis Stevenson novels. I love Robert Louis Stevenson. This has, of course, Treasure Island, Kidnapped, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Black Arrow, Weir of Hermiston, The Master of Ballantrae. And so, great collection of his novels. I just want to read it now. This guy's great. I love him. Yeah, and again, I should have an extra fancy version of this, but I don't. I just have the regular hardcover, which I guess is good enough, you know. Okay, this is a really cool thing. This is S.T. Joshi's exhaustive biography of H.P. Lovecraft, which came in 2 volumes. This is the life and times of H.P. Lovecraft. I Am Providence. And this is an amazing literary biography. There's the man, S.T. Joshi, hanging out on the back there in his younger days. Yeah, just wonderful, wonderful biography. Just superbly done. It's from Hippocampus Press. Yeah, volume 2 here. Wonderful biography. Yeah, you can get this on Kindle, of course, all in the 1 volume, for like a fairly reasonable price. So if you want to read this, you know, it's totally available. You don't have to have this like super, I don't even know how much this is worth now, but it's probably a pretty penny. And to go along with that, I have even more Lovecraft, because, you know, I didn't have enough Lovecraft on this shelf. I needed more. And so I have H.P. Lovecraft, collected fiction, a variorium edition. And this is the first volume, 1905 to 1925. Look at that. Really cool cover there. Yeah, now what this edition does, and this comes in 3 volumes, is it goes over all the textual differences between all the editions. Because like I said, there were different versions. Like the magazine versions were incorrect. They had a bunch of typos and wrong words and things like that. And so S.T. Joshi went through each piece of fiction and compared it to typescripts and manuscripts and corrected everything that he possibly could. And what he does is he goes through all the corrections that he made. So if you don't agree with him on something, at least you can see what the differences are. Like this is From Beyond, which is one of my favorite Lovecraft stories. And if you look down at the bottom, he has all the differences in the text, in the different texts. So what a great set. This is also from Hippocampus Press. And this has all of his stories in it. This 3-volume set does not have the revisions. They did publish a 4th volume with the revisions, but it was in paperback. They never did a hardcover edition of it, which sucks for me because I have the hardcovers. Oh well, that's okay. What do you do? Now then, we move on to my Robert E. Howard set. Now, unfortunately, I don't have Robert E. Howard, one of my very favorite authors in the world. You can go see my Robert E. Howard video. It's magnificent, just like all my videos are. And I talk all about Robert E. Howard, why he's so great, and why I love him so. But yeah, I was never able to find, they don't have a hardcover complete set of all his fantasy and horror fiction, which is a shame. But I have plenty in paperback Valentine books. A few years ago, I think starting in maybe 2006, somewhere around there, I did this whole line of Robert E. Howard. So we've got, starts off with Conan, and it's got 3 volumes of Conan in this set. Yeah, look at that. The Bloody Crown of Conan. Conan's so great. Such a great character. And and all of these are illustrated, actually. Some pretty good illustrations in them, in each volume. And we've also got Solomon Kane, Cull, Bran MacMorn, even a big volume of El Borak, his adventurer who adventured in the Middle East back in the 20s. It's cool stuff, yeah. And it's just so cool. Of course, people in Robert E. Howard books always fight giant apes. I'm not sure why that is, but some of the illustrations in this edition are just fantastic. Just great stuff. Look at that. Such great stories. And then we've got Sword Woman here. Robert E. Howard did have female characters who were just as tough as the men, which was a rarity back then. Yeah. So, and then in this volume, he has all his historical fiction. He did a lot of historical adventure stories to go along with his fantasy adventure stories. He was very into history, this guy. So, yeah, we've got that. We've got a volume of his just straight horror stories here, which he did some pretty good horror stories. He did some junky horror stories, but he did a lot of really good horror stories as well. All great pulpy stuff. Great pulpy writer. And then we got the 2-volume edition of the best of Robert E. Howard. And that pretty much is that. Down below here, can I tip this guy down? Down below here we have a little cabinet, and if you open it up, I have random cards and comic books. So all my comic books are down here. Well, not all of them, but a fair amount of comic books are down below here. Yeah, geez, that's a lot. Graphic novels, I should say. Yeah, a lot of graphic novels down there. So yeah, and of course I've got piles of books on the floor next to it because my bookshelf is just not big enough for all my books that are in here in the library. I also got a ton of books in the rest of the house. I've got a whole ton of Library of America volumes. I've got a bunch of Penguin classics, ton of Penguin classics, like a lot, so I can do my Sunday Penguin, and it will just never end. Got a ton of science fiction back there, you know, down below Von Manor and the Vault of Science Fiction. A lot down there. I got a ton of books, man. A ton of books. I could never do a library tour of doom like Steve Donahue is doing. Yeah, I would die before it ended. Actually, he probably would die before his ends too, because he's probably got even more books than I do. But yeah, so that's it. That's the conclusion of this shelf. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for spending your time with me once again. Tomorrow we will have something different. I'm not sure what I'm doing tomorrow. That's way in the distant future. But I've got a few things planned. So one of those things will happen. So okay, you guys, thanks for spending your time with me here at stately Von Manor, and I will see you next time.